Good morning. I'm Teri Daily, and I am the priest here at All Saints Episcopal Church in Russellville, and I'm happy to be here this morning with Hugh and Mary Silkensen and also with Millie Chevaillier. And we're here to hear a little bit about the history of All Saints here in Russellville. And so I want to start with a few questions, and then y'all feel free to add whatever you want to. First of all, when did you all first come to All Saints?
Millie, why don't you start?
We came in '57.
Okay.
And, the church, do you want me to go on?
Uh-huh.
The church was out at Red Hill when we first came, and we only had a minister that would come from Clarksville, and he came in the Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Then we had, and there were probably 5 or 6 people there at the most.
Really? So Red Hill, is that back kind of behind Arkansas Tech campus?
Kind of in the it's on the right of that road, new road that goes up back around that way.
Okay, so kind of north, I guess.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And what about Hugh and Mary? When did y'all come?
Well, we first came in 1958 when I came to be married here, and the little church at 18th in Detroit was quite small, so the Reverend Laws, that was the vicar, said, well, let's see if we can arrange to have the marriage at the Methodist church. So he married us at the Methodist church, and he was about as nervous as I was, because this was the first wedding he'd ever done.
And was he the vicar?
He was the vicar.
Of All Saints?
Yes, And he traveled from Conway, I think, so he was part-time.
There were a couple of men. Well, Bob White was one that helped get the church built on Detroit. And he and I can't remember the name of the other fellow said they're always going to, when they had to post the bands for 3 Sundays at that time, and he would always say, I'm gonna protest, or I'm gonna say something, which they didn't, but anyway.
And in 1958, the building at 18th in Detroit only had folding chairs. They didn't have pews yet. And I think they put in pews shortly after that. Do you remember, Millie?
I don't really remember
years
when they put them in, but, I know it was,
So when the church met at Red Hill, was that in a church building, or was it another building?
It was just in a room that they had out there, that we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did All Saints build the church at Detroit in 18th?
Yes.
So they didn't buy it already there, they built it?
They built it.
And
Builders, I think, were from Subiaco that built it. And they were, I think Bob White was the one that got it, and they were really, professional.
And how many people could fit in that building, in that church, in that sanctuary?
At first, probably, I don't know, probably 50.
It was added on to by the time we came.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably 50, or maybe, I don't know. Maybe not even that many.
And then the church
probably
block.
had 12 rows back. And we had them on each side, and there probably was 5, most could sit in them.
So maybe about half the size of this room right now?
Yeah.
When we came back, and I'm trying to think who it was, that the same one that said he was going to protest or have a reason about the bands, but he was so glad when we came. He said, "Oh my gosh, your family will fill up a pew."
Was that Bronson Woodward?
No.
When did y'all come
I
back?
know it was.
We came back
Ruby
in
Mower.
69.
Yeah.
You came back in 69?
69, right. And somewhere in that period of time, the church bought the home next to the church and used that as the parish house.
Okay.
And then...
And we had a jazz band in it. One of the kids had
oh,
a jazz
yes,
band.
they do their practicing over in the parish house.
And so we started out with like 5 or 6 people at Red Hill. And then when the church moved to 18th in Detroit, that was like 58 or so, like about 3 years later after you had started. Is that about right?
Uh-huh.
I think that was right, 58.
I don't, it was, I think it was 58 when they, because I know we weren't out at Red Hill very long after
very
we came. And there were maybe 5 people at church, but there were more people that belonged.
Right.
I do remember, and very few children, but there were, the Birminghams came, they started coming pretty soon after I was there, I can remember. And maybe they were even already members, but they had several children. But I can remember when children came. I didn't bring my children. Bill stayed home with them, and I came to church because they were little.
Yeah.
And I will say they're 60, in their 60s now. But they were toddlers.
And in 1969, John Shumaker came as a half-time vicar and half-time professor at University at Tech. And he taught, he was a metallurgist, I think, and taught something in the engineering type school half-time at Tech. And I can't remember when he actually became a full-time vicar, somewhere in there. But
How long was he here as vicar total?
he was here until 1977, when Pat Murray came, and Mr. Shumaker retired at that time.
And when did All Saints become a parish? Was that under Reverend Shumaker, or was it under?
Yes.
Okay,
It became a parish in 1976.
1976.
We'll tell how, then that's when he invited All Saints invited all the whole diocese to come here. And they didn't think it was a good idea, but we could have done it at Tech, because we had it all figured out, and they said, oh, well, it would be impossible here, but Jack Shumaker said, I know we can do it.
And people came.
No, they didn't. It was not. They discouraged it, but we never quit saying we could have done it.
You could have done it.
I think we have a picture in the hall of when we became a parish.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go look at that. I don't remember seeing it, but I do remember seeing the shovel out there. And so, what year did y'all break ground on the current church?
We moved in 1991, so it probably was under construction for at least a year before that. This was under Alan Sutherland. They had purchased 3 acres here of land at one point before that, and then somewhere later, I guess when they got enough money, they purchased 3 more acres, so of our total of 6 acres here. And in 1999, Alan Sutherland led the whole church in a parade driving over to the new church from the old church.
In a little red convertible.
Yeah, he had a little convertible, which he stuck up over pretty high because it was big.
So, how was worship in the early days different from worship now? So you didn't have communion every Sunday when you first started out, right?
Seemed like we had
morning prayer.
alternated Sundays, morning prayer one Sunday and then communion the next Sunday. Was that
I can't really remember. I remember when I first started going to church, which I was about in Pine Bluff, when I was about 13 or 14, we only had one service of communion a month, and then we would have, so I'm not sure when I started here how we did, but we would have 3 services of morning prayer. And, but they would always have communion at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Really? And that was pretty typical of the Episcopal Church everywhere at
I
that
imagine.
time, right? That
Yeah.
I think I remember people saying that before the new prayer book in '79, that morning prayer was more common than it was after.
It was. And you know, we also had a service, which I think is kind of interesting, of anti-communion, where we would read the first part of the communion service, which went, it would go through, and we would say all of the commandments, in that part. And then when you got ready to start the communion, then it would be over. But I think that it was really kind of an interesting service. So.
And we can still do all of those things. I think we just don't. But it would be interesting, once in a while to do something that was different.
Yeah.
What, for y'all, I guess 2 questions. First, what was it like to raise your children in All Saints? And then second, what are the most memorable moments in All Saints history for you? So I'll take the first one first. What was it like to raise your children in this church?
Well,
There were not a lot of children then,
no.
nor were there, but still, it was kind of interesting when they would have a birthday party, they would want their friends from church to go to the birthday party. And there would still be a friendship, church friendship that developed. And then eventually they got, I think Carolyn McClellan was one that helped get some really good Sunday school programs going.
For the children.
And Carol Lee, several people were real good.
So would you say that there were a good amount of children by the 90s?
I can't remember.
Oh, I'm not, I know when my children were when they were teenagers, which I'm not sure when, probably in the 8, I don't know,
Yeah.
let's see, I don't think. But anyway, we did have enough that they had a group that met and on Sunday evening, and there was probably 6 or 8 of them that would come.
Was that like EYC?
Huh?
Similar to EYC?
EYC, yeah. And they had, they were pretty a close group then that came, and they seemed to really enjoy it. And we had Sunday school. It would be kind of like it is now.
Few children. And
Yeah, a few children, and but they seemed to really, they kind of were close. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
They were, yeah, and but we've never had very many.
When Jeannie McCabe was here,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
she
really-
did a really good job. Yeah, they had a lot of good things that
they did a lot of
Yeah,
interesting
they went on
things.
a trip one time. Don't you remember that? I don't remember what year that was.
right, I think it was one of the pilgrimages for the Journey to Adulthood that they
There-
did.
It was.
I guess, as an aside, didn't you and Bill meet at EYC?
We did.
That's what I had thought.
We did. I mean, he was older, and he had just gotten back out of the Navy. And he came kind of as a chaperone.
Well, he wasn't a great chaperone.
Because he was a friend of the fellow where we were having it.
I thought I remembered that.
Yeah.
And I also just want to point out that Hugh is holding Sophie, and Sophie is the dog of Hugh and Mary, and is 14 years old and has a little bit of separation anxiety, and is precious. Then what are y'all's most memorable moments of your times here at All Saints?
Well, of course, one of the memorable moments was moving into the new church here from that little church at 18th in Detroit that we'd been in for quite a few years. And to come into this beautiful building, that was a memorable moment.
Well, and I remember when we had was it our 25th anniversary? We had a really big, was it 25th anniversary?
I think so.
And I remember us all being in Shumaker Hall, and it was just so, Sutherland Hall. And it was just, a lot of people ended up coming back, and it was really a great time.
On that bulletin or the little directory that we were looking at earlier, what year was that?
Oh,
The directory was
directory?
1990.
1990 directory.
We were all looking at that before. We came and seeing how different we looked at the time, and then remembering some of the things that our friends who are no longer, have died, and that have done that we can still smile and enjoy thinking about.
This directory of 1990 had pictures of the whole congregation, the individual pictures, and it's interesting to look back and see people that are no longer here, and remembering how they all looked back in 1990. It'd be nice if we did another directory like that sometime.
We need to do that. And we could do it with just a digital camera, and you can make your own directories online now.
Oh, that would be good.
So you don't have to, so we could definitely do that. Let me see, what else do I want to know? Who do you remember being that we might know, or what are the names of anybody that you know were the founding members of this congregation?
Millie would know better than I do.
Well, I remember Mary and Bob White, and Ruby and Moore, and we can't think of his
Herb.
Herb Moore, and Bronson Woodward. They lived in Dardanelle. And there's a very interesting story about that.
That's a good story.
You can tell that one.
Maybe we shouldn't say it around his. I'm not.
Was Viva May?
No,
she wasn't
Viva
there
May
then.
wasn't a member of the church then. There were some McAllisters, and I think they were teachers at Tech. And I will say one thing. We had, when I first came, there were a group of women, and we had we would have our women's group meet, and they were, it was really interesting and fun, and we were very active.
And on the carport, you had the carport
Yeah,
sale
we had a carport sale.
at the steps of the courthouse,
Yeah.
right?
You could do that then.
Yeah. And we would do really well. We'd get down there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and but anyway, it was.
I wasn't there then, but Mary White told me that they would set up things and she'd get some of Bob's shirts and put them in, and he would be down there by 6 in the morning and buy his shirts back because he didn't want to lose them and she wanted to get rid of them.
That's great. So they could have just saved a lot of trouble, and he could have just given the money to the
Yeah,
church
well, he
to begin
probably
with, and it would have been done, right? I'm trying to think about the different priests that y'all have had. So initially, someone came from Clarksville, and then somebody came from Conway.
Conway.
From Conway.
Conway.
Okay. So someone was coming from Conway, and
I'm
then
not sure who was here when I first came. I can't remember that it was, I'm not sure.
Well, it was
I don't
in '69. It was Father Sylvan Laws, and he was the one that performed the wedding ceremony for Mary and for me.
was that 59 or 69?
69.
69, okay.
69. And then John Shumaker, we called him Jack, arrived here in 1969. And he came as a half-time vicar and half-time professor at Arkansas Tech. He was a metallurgist by trade before he went into the ministry. And he was here until 1977 when Pat Murray came after Jack Shumaker retired. And Pat Murray was here from 77 until 84 or 85, I think. And then Greg Riley was our rector then until 87. Alan Sutherland came. And then Alan Sutherland was here probably from 87 until 04 or something like that when Evelyn Hornaday came. And
she was your first female
yes,
priest.
And I can't remember if Joe Sterkin became our rector in 2010, and I can't remember if Evelyn was here for 6 full years. Do you remember?
Or was it Walt Fries? Didn't
Oh
Walt
yeah, then
Fries-
Walt came in there.
He
Yeah.
was before Evelyn, right? It was
Yes.
Walt Fries and then Evelyn.
Yeah, I think that's right. I should have looked at the pictures out there on the wall.
Yeah, Walt Fries, Evelyn, and then Jose. And Jose was here for 10 years, and he's the longest serving priest that you've had.
Oh, really?
Right?
I thought maybe Alan was, but
How long was
Can't remember.
Alan here?
I have no idea.
I'd have to go out there and look.
Yeah.
I have no
So
idea.
Alan and Jose are
Yeah.
the two most, we're not sure which is the longest, but they're the two that have been here the longest, or were here the longest.
or Jack Shumaker was here for about eight years, I guess.
So you've had several priests that have been here a pretty long time.
Yeah, I think we have too.
Right.
And as far as women priests in general, you've had a few because you've had Evelyn Hornaday, who was here as an intentional interim,
Right.
right? And then Angie Theracon
Okay.
became a priest while Jose was here, her
Right.
husband.
And
then I came, and this is the church that actually sent me to seminary. So it's my home church. And then Mike Lean was with us a year. So All Saints has actually had 4 female priests over the.
When did you all come? When were y'all here the first time?
So we moved here in the year 2000. And so we were here for 5 years before I went to seminary.
I just couldn't remember what year.
And then I was in seminary from 2005 to 2008 and served Conway from 2008 until 2017, and then came here.
I think this was something that I think that the young people would enjoy knowing about. Sherry, I asked Sherry because I did not think she could be an acolyte until, you know, later on when I think she said she was around 12 when she got to start being an acolyte, and when they let the girls. And I just think that's an interesting thing.
And the boys were able to be.
They could not be acolytes.
So she was one of the first female acolytes here.
Here, yeah. Sherry and Sue Gray. Susan Gray, her daughter. She was, you know, at the age.
Were the Mcgregor girls acolytes?
Well, they probably were, but they were younger.
They definitely were, because one of the boys got sick to his stomach and threw up. And
Oh, and she cleaned it up.
Carolyn came out and took care of everything.
That sounds like
Very
Carolyn.
quietly.
Yes.
They were young. I mean, they were younger. I mean, Sherry was
Right.
older than they were, so she got, you know.
When were women first on the vestry here? Kind of, when do you think?
guess-
Kind of.
I don't know, I guess around that same time.
And then
Trying
we
to
used to
think.
wear head coverings.
Yeah, yeah. I thought,
Didn't go in without a head covering.
yeah, we wore a little doily.
Oh, that's
I
great.
thought about that.
Did y'all keep some in case somebody forgot them or
Yeah.
something like that?
Oh.
What else about worship do you think has changed?
Well, of course, the fact that they used to not have communion every Sunday, that was a big change.
That was the big one.
Uh-huh. And some people said, well, I kind of miss alternating Sundays and having morning prayer every other Sunday.
Did we give the peace?
No, we didn't
I
have
don't
peace.
remember that. We
No,
didn't do that.
no. It changed a lot. I mean, I guess when we changed prayer books, it probably
It changed a good deal.
Yeah, a lot.
Now, have y'all always come to the later service? Or have you ever been part of, was there a time when you were the early service?
We came to 8 o'clock occasionally, but I think we were primarily 10:30.
Mostly I did too.
Uh-huh.
I have to.
For one thing, I always liked the music at 10:30,
Yeah.
which we didn't have at 8 o'clock.
What have been the ministries? I mean, I know that each of you has done so much in this congregation. What are the ministries that you have most enjoyed here? Being part of.
See, I was on the building committee. That was interesting when we getting ready to build
That's
this.
a lot of work.
And then I was on the vestry several times, and I always enjoyed being on the vestry.
The mower.
Yeah, he is the mower.
That might be a love-hate relationship, right? I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
No, I've never minded mowing. You know, when you're mowing, you look behind and say, look at that progress we're making here.
That's right. That's
Well, we
right.
had, Hugh and I did EYC when we were in Colorado, when we were in Minnesota. And here, I think, did we ever do it here? Not sure.
I can't remember if we did here.
And then Sunday school.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I've done Sunday
I think
school.
everybody's done Sunday school at some point.
Oh, yeah. But,
The women did. I didn't do Sunday school.
What do you remember about the different bishops that we've had during your time in Arkansas? Anything stand out? Or?
I can remember Bishop Brown was pretty
Colorful.
colorful, and I mean, he was always saying, "This is the way these things will be done." he sort of he was more of a autocratic type bishop than some of the ones that followed.
And then he and Jack Shumaker were real close friends.
Really?
I'm trying to think what was the bishop that probably before that, right before Brown, was such a gentle man. I can remember him.
Was it Mitchell?
Keller was
Keller.
Keller.
I
Oh,
think
yeah,
Keller
Bishop
was
Keller.
He
after
was just
Brown.
such a gentle man, and gentle. He was, I don't know, he just kind of, to me, was what I thought he was.
Well, that's a good description of him. Gentle.
And then there was
Yeah, I
Bishop
remember.
Donovan, right?
Bishop Donovan.
Bishop Donovan, who I've never met.
Pardon?
I've never met Bishop Donovan.
He was very nice. I liked him very much too.
Bishop Donovan.
We've had some
Oh.
we've had some very, very good bishops.
Yeah, I liked him too.
And then Larry Mays,
I
right?
liked him.
Then there was Larry Mays for a long time.
Yeah.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And then Larry Benfield, who we
Yeah,
have now.
I could-
Uh-huh. He's been here for quite a long time.
He has.
Uh-huh.
He has. Do you want to say a few words about when our Korean brothers and sisters came to the church? And what was that like?
Exciting.
Yes, I think it was. And I think everybody was glad. Everybody I know was glad to have them join with us. And also to do part of the service in their language, where we have the gospel read in their language. So I think that was wonderful.
I love it whenever now and then one of the little real young ones comes heads up to the altar and gets a little smile or whatever.
Yes, yes. And certainly having the Korean members with us and here in this place has increased the number of children we have at All Saints.
That's right.
We in the past during the Vietnam War, the congregation decided to adopt a Vietnamese family, and Dick and Catherine Morrissey volunteered to house the family. They had just one daughter, wasn't it? Susie Vu?
Was she born after they got
Yeah.
here?
I
She
think
might have been
so.
born after they got here. But so his mother and father, and then Susie was born. And they lived with the Morrissey family for quite a long time.
Yeah.
And I know after the parents died, Susie Vu, their daughter, kept in contact with the Morrisseys for a long time.
Yeah.
And Dick Morrissey was a professor of history at Arkansas Tech, and he was a good friend of mine. And with Millie's husband Bill, we used to go fishing together all the time. But then I think after the Vietnamese parents died, Susie. Where
Her
did
mother
Susie Vu
didn't.
go?
Susie Vu's mother didn't die. Her
she didn't
father
die.
was in a terrible wreck, and he
Yeah.
eventually
Okay, and he was
Yeah.
killed. Okay.
And I remember, I mean, they called the children, the grandchildren, they called the Marcies, they were their grandparents. They called them grandmother and
Did
which
they
I just
really?
thought that, I
And
mean, they
continued.
were wonderful too.
And they continued the relationship after Catherine
Yeah.
moved to Washington,
Oh,
D.C.
yeah. They were,
And so I think now that Catherine died, I wonder about her daughter. Still, I imagine they'll
yeah,
still keep
I
up.
think so too. I don't know, but it was really good to see that. But I think having the Karen families here is just brought a really nice atmosphere to our church. I love having them here. Yeah.
Well, I want to say, having brought my children up in this church, that there is something about a church this size that is harder to get in a larger church.
That's right.
And that's that I feel like my children got to know adults and see other examples of adults in their lives. that they saw on a regular basis and got to know more than they would have at a really huge church. And that was really important to me and Dave. And so thank y'all and all the other people at All Saints who were formational for them as they were growing up.
You know, I feel that I can just truly call this church my family.
Yeah.
I really
talked,
do.
We've talked
Yeah.
about it. And
It's just,
it is. We have some of our
Yeah.
closest friends,
that's right.
and some we don't see all the time.
And the children are all our children.
That's right.
I think we should add that we are very thankful to have Teri as our rector, and hope she
thank you.
stays for a long time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
This has been such a gift to me. Not many people get to come back to their home church, and this place is just so special to me, and Dave and I love it. So thank you. Is there anything else that you want to add, that you want our youth who are being confirmed to know, or
I think there's a certain thing about being home, even when you are visiting another Episcopal church. There's a continuity there from your home church. There's something that you feel like you're home.
I think I'd like to put in a word of thanks for Tim and Kristen Smith for making music such a nice part of our services, and having spent so much time working with the choir and the
They do.
orchestration. I really appreciate that.
I do too, and music is, from the time that I've been here, it's always been a big part of this church. And Tim and Kristen do such a good job, and I think one of the things I think about when I think about music in All Saints is that Tim and Kristen really see it as a ministry. I mean, it is, music is worship. It's not performance. Yeah, it's worship, and it's just, they do a fabulous job.
We are very fortunate.
We are very fortunate. Well, I just want to say thank y'all so much for being willing to do this. And we will show it to our youth and anybody else who would like to see it. But we are very grateful to y'all for, I can't imagine All Saints without the three of you.